everybody, what's up? This is Chris from T3 Handicapping. It's been a while since I made a video, but I wanted to come on and share sort of the updated system that I've been using to take the T3 picks and turn them into wagers. So obviously, the T3 handicapping is designed to give you some key factors and give you some maybe overall picks. But I think there's some like nuances that you really want to use, and then most importantly, you want to be able to take those picks and turn them into meaningful bets. And I think that's obviously a part of the game that a lot of handicappers struggle with. There's a lot of players that can pick good horses. There are systems that can pick good horses. I think T3 is one of them. But certainly there's a lot of products out there that pick winners, but they don't always put it into like how to construct a wager off of it. And so this video is really designed to do that. Now you will notice some differences in the system or the software that I'm using and some of our legacy products. This is a new one that I've been sort of working on, just sort of updating and cleaning up some of our calculations and then trying to get it into Google Sheets so that all you need is a Gmail account to run our program. Hopefully that makes it a little more accessible to all players because you won't need Excel. But this version is not available. But again, I'm not so worried about these because it's not that different than the current versions of the software that exist. But what I really want to focus on is how we take any type of computer-based pick and turn it into a meaningful wagering strategy. So it's February 10th, 2025. Turf Paradise is running today. There's not a lot of races on the slate. I have not previewed this race, so as we go through and talk this race out, I don't know that it's going to turn into a meaningful wagering strategy, but we're just going to kind of go through and look at how I would use the T3 picks to turn them into wagers, and it's been pretty successful recently. Obviously, there's a little less opportunity on this Monday than there would be on, say, like a Saturday at Gulfstream with 12 horse fields and that kind of thing. But nevertheless, I think it's a good exercise to go through. So this is race 6, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. It's a claimer, non 3, race rating of 73 for us. And what you can see is over here, I've got my sort of handicapping grid with all the different factors and the ranks. And then over here is kind of my betting spreadsheet that I've put together. So I always start with the stack rank, which is just literally the rankings that are right here. I just put them in here. Okay, so the first step that I want to do is right now I've got a field of 8. There have not been scratches yet, so obviously this is likely to change if horses do come out of this race. But I've got 8 horses in this race currently. That's too many horses to include in an 8-horse field for obvious reasons. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to look to get rid of some horses that I don't care for. So I move my stack rank right down here to eliminations. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to try and eliminate horses that I don't think have a chance. So in order to eliminate horses, I start in the run style category. I'm looking at pace of the race. Now, I know that the Turf Paradise Dirt is definitely speed favoring. And this is particularly pronounced when we're doing sprint races, which obviously 6 furlongs is. So I tend to avoid horses that are towards the back of the pack. Now, one thing that I do notice as I'm looking through these run styles is I notice that there isn't a ton of true speed signed on. I tend to think of true speed as E7s, E8s, because those are horses that are going to go to the lead no matter what. E6s may be in that category. Anything below an E6, though, is not going to be a speed horse in my estimation. I'm also very hesitant to put our tactical type horses, or if you use Brisnet, like EP type horses, as speed horses, because I think they can get the lead, but that designation shows that they're willing to be tactical, and I think that can really slow down the projected pace of a race. So when I look at this, I'm seeing that there is 1, maybe 2 speeds in the race. And so this seems like a race that's definitely going to fit the profile of speed favoring. I think the pace is going to be fairly average, even if the 2 and 8 go together. I don't think 2 horses create a speed duel. I really think it's that 3rd horse getting in the mix that creates a true meltdown. So I don't really see anything here from a pace perspective. I will say I am a little bit leery when we get into average to maybe even slow paces about horses that are coming from way out of it, like this S0. this closer type horse, Maricopa County. I'm hesitant, but I'm not willing to eliminate that one alone on this pace scenario because I just don't know that there's anything super extreme that's going to preclude. Now, because this one does have a non-winner condition, I do sometimes like to look at the lifetime starts to see if there's any horse that's taken extra long at this condition. And I do see this one has 32. So again, I'm aware of that, but I'm not willing to eliminate it just based on that alone. The next thing that I look at is jockey trainer percentages. I tend to, when I'm going through the elimination process, I look to eliminate any horse that has less than a 10% jockey and trainer for sure. Less than 10% jockey or trainer, depending on what the other one has and what some of our factors look like. So as I go through here, I've got, one uh, category that's below 10%, 0% on the trainer. I've got one that's below 10% on the trainer. I've got both above 10% and one that's at 20%, which is very good. So this one's definitely going to stay. This one, both are below 10%. Anytime I see both being below 10%, especially given that there are no green categories over here, the 4 is going to be off my stack rank. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one out of the mix and no longer consider that for any of the positions. Now here, obviously no problem with the jockey trainer. I've got one below, one above, but I like this gap here, right? So 7% isn't great, but 17, almost 18% is towards the top of what I consider to be a good jockey. So whenever I see a great jockey with a poor trainer or a high percentage jockey with a poor percentage trainer, I tend to kind of err on the side of keeping that horse in. If I see a good trainer with a low percentage jockey, that then becomes more of a concern for me. Here I've got another 00. This is that Maricopa County who I was already kind of on the fence about, but now I've got 2 low percentage connections. I'm going to take that one out of the mix. And then 0, which I don't love, but again, a 14% jockey, serviceable enough, and certainly lots of first place categories, so I'm going to leave that one in. So now I come down, I've eliminated horses, I've taken a field of 8, and I've at least got it down to a field of 6. So I'm going to now, for my quick check, now that I've eliminated horses I'm not interested in using, now I'm just going to use the horses that I am interested in using and try and kind of rearrange my stack rank. Yeah, I could just use this, but I want to make sure that my opinion of this race matches the nuance of the race conditions because the algorithms, honestly, are somewhat static. There's slight modifications depending on the type of race, but for the most part, they're pretty consistent and they don't have ways to really break down the type of race and the dynamics of one horse versus the other, etc., etc. So once I've done my eliminations, I like to go through and I like to sort of see if I agree with the way this works out. So the first thing I'm looking at is Cowboy Kisses. And I can see that Cowboy Kisses, just from a pure like look standpoint, I've got 5 green categories, which means he's in the top flight. And so I can see that this horse is very clearly the sort of the top horse when it comes to um, the stack rank. I like to look for how much distance is between the first and second place. It's not a ton, just 1 point. So I think this race could be like decently competitive. But as I'm looking through this, I'm seeing that this horse has tops in speed, a little bit low in jockey trainer, and then I'm seeing that in form, this horse is in the third tier. Those are the 3 categories that I found at Turf Paradise to be the most impactful. It's important to know that this is really different track to track. Yesterday I was playing Gulfstream in Santa Anita, and I was looking a lot more at like class and speed. On all weather tracks, I look at stamina. So the factors that I value are different from race to race, and that's not necessarily going to be reflected in the overall score. So that's why I'm kind of looking at some of these prime factors. And that's going to change, like I said, from race to race and from track to track. So I do like the 8. I think the 8 definitely is a standout. I have the 1 in second. And although the 1 is tops in form, I don't see the 1 as really being a top contender in any of the others. But at 12 to 1, I do think this horse is kind of interesting. So I still like the 8 better, but the 1 is definitely kind of firmly in second for me. The 6, as I'm looking at this one, I mean the T1, the 1 in terms of getting towards the lead is a little bit concerning. Jockey Trainer's good, which is one of those key stats. It is the top class horse based on our ratings. Good record here. I'm willing to leave that one in third, but definitely don't see that one jumping ahead of these others. Don Juan Bubba, I have in fourth. Speed is, in the third tier, but quite a bit below the top. Doesn't really rate all that well in form or jockey trainer, so I'm not in love with this horse. This definitely seems like the best of the rest so far, but it seems like there's maybe a little bit more delineation in my mind between 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I kind of think one I think the 8 might be a little bit of a standout, but maybe the 1 is interesting. The 6 I kind of definitely feel is like second cut, but then I feel like this is where a clear delineation is happening. So the 2, the 5, I like that, the jockey trainer. I don't like to totally make a big deal of that, but when you see such astronomical numbers against some of these others that have struggled, I do think it really kind of perks my ears up, especially when it has decent class. It's going to be sitting tactical and does have kind of a late kick here. That's what that heart rating is looking for. So I do think this 5 is probably a better wager than the 2, just based on the way that I'm seeing. So here I'm going to go ahead and flip. And then I do think the 3 is okay, but you can see just third in both categories. That's not something that I really am going to like move it over everybody else. I don't necessarily see it as being a better play than the 2, so I'm okay leaving it like this. Now, that may have seemed like a lot of extra work just to change the 4th and 5th positions in my stack rank, but I think it's important because now I'm going to go and try and actually create those separations that I talked about earlier as I put together my bet construction. So here I'm going to go, I think the 8 and the 1 are probably like the clear standouts. Then I think it's 8-1-6, kind of in that second tier. And then, like I said, the third place tier, I kind of feel like then that's where maybe the 5 would come in. And then I kind of feel like the 2 is sort of in my bottom tier with the 3 horse. Now, I didn't preview this race at all, so I didn't really know what the end result would be. But as I'm looking here, at least pre-scratches, I'm seeing an okay kind of pyramid style wager. I now want to use this to go through and make bets that match my style of play. I got to be honest. I feel like in going through this, I do kind of feel like maybe the 8 is a little bit more of a standout than my grid suggests. I do think the 2 is interesting, or the 1 is interesting because of how many first place categories. But I think if I really wanted to like ISO into this, I think I would probably just single the 8 up on top here and just move the 1 into this second position. But for the purposes of this, because we're getting good value on the 8, or on the 1, I think I'll just leave him there. So typically then I use this to construct this. When I don't feel like I have a strong win candidate, when I don't feel like there's just one horse that can win, I tend not to bet the win wager. I just leave it blank. I just don't use it, and that's okay. Now, if I felt like the 8 was a true standout, then I would usually take the 8 and then decide what my fair price is and bet a win based on that. Now, based on this board, I can see that I really have kind of 2 horses that I think can win and 3 horses that I think are kind of in that second tier. And I do this in a couple of different ways. One option is that I will sometimes just do a simple box on the top horses, 1 and 8. Just say they're the 2 best, and I think they're going to be 1 and 2. And I know I said the 6 could be there, but maybe it won't be. So sometimes I'll just do a 1-8 box. Sometimes I'll do a 1-6-8 box, especially if I feel like the other horses are offering value. So in this case, like if the 1 wins, or the 6 wins at 6-1, at 12-1, those are pretty decent values on the morning line. Now at Turf Paradise, the morning line can shift quite a bit, so you have to be a little careful about that and be flexible. I think in this case, because there's only 3 horses in second, I'm gonna do 1-6-8 as a box. But I have also done a 1-8 with 1-6-8 to really truly reflect that opinion. But I actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm going to kind of go with that. I'm going to leave the 6 in second. And I'm just going to kind of go with a key here. So just 1-8 over 1-6-8. Obviously, I'm really hoping for that one to be involved at 12 to 1, and then go from there. The one thing that I will say when I do this, though, is this base wager here is going to be $4 on a dollar. And so I'm really looking for any payout on a dollar to be to be greater than $12, maybe even a little bit north of that. Always making sure that I'm mindful of value. But I think for now, I'll keep it like that, and I'll eliminate any combinations paying less than, say, 12, maybe $15, just kind of depending on how I'm feeling at that time. From a try perspective, things can get expensive really quickly, so I always like to do a quick check in. So, based on this setup, I can see I have two horses in first, and that would mean that one of them's going to win. So I'd have two options in second, even though there are three horses listed. And then I would have two in third. So for those of you new to the trifecta wager, I just like to kind of do that math. For a $1 trifecta, this is going to be $8 if I just literally use the first, second, third tiers exactly as they stand. And I'm okay with that. Like, that's a really good option for me. So it fits well within my budget. So I'm going to go 1-8 with 1-6-8 with 1-5-6 and 8. Okay, so we said this one's going to be $4, and I'm just using $1 denominations for everything just to keep it easy. And then with the superfecta, I'll shrink that down a little bit. So I've got $4, I've got $8 on the try. With the try, I don't do value stuff, so I don't eliminate horses based on perceived value, because I do find the try pools to be somewhat unpredictable. And if you really truly do hit a try, especially if you're keeping your tickets small enough, you should be able to turn a profit. The super has become one of my all-time favorite wagers. I've had a lot of success with that lately, especially getting some longer price horses underneath. I find that's one of the few vertical tickets that you can still really make a huge connection and a huge score on. And I think with that 12 to 1 horse, towards the top of the ticket, I think I've got a chance to make something of this, being an 8 horse field as well. Now, if this field scratches down to 6, I'm going to ditch my super ticket right away. So again, same thing I just did with the try ticket, I like to do here with the super. So I've got 2 horses in first, and then that means I've got 2 options in second, because one will have to win, which means I have 2 options in third. The math is exactly the same up until that point. Now, I've got 3 horses that have come out of the equation if my ticket is correct. So that means I have 3 horses in the fourth spot. And so you can see that I have a $24 wager on one. I'm going to shrink that down, and just do the 10 cent, because that's the minimum on the super. And 240 is more than comfortable for me. I generally like to play this around, I like to play my supers around $10 to $12. So I would probably be playing this one for 40 to 50 cents. But for the purposes of this, we'll just leave that $2.40 wager. But again, I think it's really important that if you see something like this where you're like, I feel good about my handicapping, I feel good about where I think these horses can land, I think it's good for you to go ahead and pump up any of those things as your bankroll will allow, and to match your opinion. So then I would go here with a 1-8, with a 1-6-8, with a 1-5-6-8, with a 1-2-3-5-6-8. And then I would put that together. And so now you can see I'm into this race for $14.40, just playing, $1 minimums or $1 on the exacta and tries, and then, the 10 cent supers, and kind of going from there. And then hopefully we see this come to fruition. Now, will this system hit every time? No. Is this a guaranteed winner? No. But what I have found is that by going through this, I feel much more confident about the bets that I'm putting in, that they match my opinion, and that I can, have a successful day at the races. We'll keep an eye out on race 6. Obviously, if this race gets a bunch of scratches, we could have some big changes to how we see the race going, and we'd have to make adjustments accordingly. But let's see how things go, and hope that we can cash those tickets.